The Hollywood Sign Conspiracy, a century-old mystery. Unveiled. Before we start, just a reminder, if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get to the video. The digital revelation. The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the UCLA Digital Archives laboratory as Sarah Chen meticulously adjusted the contrast settings on her high-resolution monitor. It was a crisp October morning in 2023, exactly 100 years since the iconic Hollywood sign had first been erected on the rugged slopes of Mount Lee. What had begun as a routine digitization project for the Los Angeles Historical Society was about to uncover one of the most perplexing mysteries in American history. The photograph before her was a pristine black and white image from 1920s, capturing the newly constructed Hollywoodland sign in all its original splendor. Each of the 13 massive white letters stood 50 feet tall, a bold advertisement for the ambitious real estate development that had commissioned them. The Crescent Scene Company had spared no expense in creating what they hoped would be a temporary but eye-catching marketing tool for their hillside subdivision. Sarah had been working with this particular image for 3 days, using cutting-edge AI enhancement algorithms to restore details that had been lost to time and photographic limitation. The process was painstaking but rewarding, revealing textures and nuances that the original photographers could never have imagined future technology would uncover. As she applied a new spectral analysis filter, something extraordinary emerged from the shadows behind the massive letter O in Hollywood. Sarah blinked, adjusted her glasses, and leaned closer to the screen. What she was seeing defied everything she knew about the sign's construction history. "Professor Martinez," she called out, her voice echoing through the laboratory with barely contained excitement. "You need to see this immediately." Professor Elena Martinez, a distinguished historian specializing in early Hollywood and the development of Los Angeles, hurried across the laboratory. Her silver hair was pulled back in a characteristic bun, and her dark eyes reflected the curiosity that had driven her through 3 decades of academic research. She had examined thousands of historical photographs, but the urgency in Sarah's voice suggested this discovery was different. "What is it, Sarah?" "Another publicity shot from the silent film era," Professor Martinez asked, settling into the chair beside her graduate student. Sarah pointed to a specific section of the enhanced photograph, her finger trembling slightly with excitement. "Look here, behind the co, and partially hidden by the shadows of the L. Do you see it?" Professor Martinez squinted at the screen, then gasped audibly. There, partially obscured by the massive letter and the natural shadows of the hillside, was the unmistakable outline of a structure that had no business existing. It appeared to be a sophisticated building, perhaps 30 feet long and 20 feet wide, with what looked like unusual equipment or machinery visible through several windows. Most remarkably, there appeared to be some kind of antenna or transmission equipment mounted on the roof. "That's absolutely impossible," Professor Martinez whispered, her academic composure momentarily shaken. "According to every historical record, construction document, and eyewitness account, that area was completely undeveloped when the sign was erected. The only structures were the scene itself and some basic maintenance sheds at the base of the mountain." Sarah nodded vigorously, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as she applied various digital filters to enhance different aspects of the image. "I've cross-referenced this photograph with every known image from that period in our database. This structure doesn't appear in any other documentation. It's as if someone deliberately kept it hidden from public view." The 2 women stared at the screen in stunned silence, both understanding the profound implications of their discovery. If there had been an undocumented, technologically advanced structure behind the Hollywood sign in 1923, it raised fundamental questions about the official history of one of America's most famous landmarks. Who had built it? Why had it been kept secret? What was its purpose? And most intriguingly, what had happened to it? Professor Martinez reached for her phone with trembling hands. I'm calling Dr. Whitfield at the Architecture Department and Maria Santos from Forensic Photography. This discovery could completely rewrite our understanding of early Hollywood history. Así de alert, Sarah continued her meticulous examination of the photograph, applying different enhancement techniques to reveal additional details. The more she studied the image, the more extraordinary it became. She could make out what appeared to be electrical wiring running from the mysterious structure toward the sign itself, suggesting some kind of connection between the building and the famous letter. There were also theater tracks leading to the structure, indicating regular vehicular access despite the remote hillside location. Most puzzling of all, there seemed to be figures moving around the building, at least 3 people visible in various windows and doorways, though the image resolution made it impossible to identify them or determine what they were doing. The afternoon sun streamed through the laboratory windows as Professor Martinez assembled what would become one of the most important research teams in UCLA's history. James Whitfield, a specialist in early 20th century architecture and construction techniques, arrived within an hour, followed by Maria Santos, whose expertise in forensic photograph analysis had helped solve several historical mysteries. This is absolutely unprecedented. Whitfield declared about studying the enhanced image for 20 minutes. The architectural style appears to be industrial, possibly designed for manufacturing or research purposes. But the level of sophistication suggested by these visible elements is decades ahead of what should have been possible in the end. Maria Santos was running the photograph through a battery of authentication tests, checking for any signs of digital manipulation or historical forgery. The photographic evidence is completely authentic, she confirmed. The paper composition, chemical aging, and grain structure are all consistent within the percentage de presentography. Whatever the structure is, it was definitely there when this picture was taken. As the team worked late into the evening, none of them noticed the black sedan that had been parked across the street from the laboratory since early afternoon, or the telephoto lens, occasionally visible through its tinted windows. Their discovery had not gone unnoticed, and there were others who had been waiting nearly a century for someone to uncover what they had worked so hard to keep hidden. The Hollywood sign had guarded its secret for almost 100 years, but that secret was about to change everything they thought they knew about American history, technology, and the true purpose behind one of the world's most recognizable landmarks. You want to know how far this message is reaching? Comment below and tell me which city or country you're watching from. The UCLA Digital Archives Laboratory had been transformed overnight into a high-security research facility. Professor Martinez had contacted the university administration, who immediately recognized the potential significance of the discovery and authorized unlimited resources for the investigation. By morning, the team had expanded to include Robert Kim, a historian specializing in early Hollywood development, and Dr. Lisa Park, an expert in historical document preservation and analysis. The enhanced photograph now occupied an entire wall of the laboratory, projected in stunning detail that revealed new mysteries with each examination. Dr. Whitfield had created detailed architectural sketches based on the visible portions of the mysterious structure, while Maria Santos continued her forensic analysis of every pixel in the image. I've made significant progress on the structural analysis, Whitfield announced, pointing to his meticulously drawn blueprints. The building appears to be approximately 30 feet by 20 feet, with a peaked roof and what looks like a reinforced concrete foundation. The construction style is consistent with industrial or research facilities from that era, but the visible equipment suggests a level of technological sophistication that shouldn't have existed. Kim had been researching the historical context surrounding the sign's construction, diving deep into newspaper archives, construction records, and city planning documents from the early 90s. I've discovered some fascinating discrepancies in the official records, he reported. The Hollywood sign project was managed by the Crescent Sign Company, but I found several invoices for materials and labor that don't correspond to the sign construction itself. Professor Martinez studied the timeline Dr. Kim had created on a large whiteboard. What kind of materials are we talking about? Electrical equipment, primarily industrial generators, heavy-duty wiring, precision optical instruments, and something called specialized communication apparatus. The invoices are signed by someone named Thomas Holloway, but there's no record of him working for the Crescent Sign Company or any other contractor involved in the sign project. Sarah, who had been working tirelessly on image enhancement, suddenly straightened in her chair with excitement. I think I found something crucial. Look at the section of the photograph. She had isolated a portion of the image, showing the ground around the mysterious structure. Under extreme magnification and spectral analysis, what had initially appeared to be random shadows in natural terrain now revealed an intricate pattern of geometric shapes that had been carved or painted on the hillside. Those are definitely astronomical symbols. Whitfield observed, studying the ancient images through a magnifying glass. That's a star chart, and those appear to be planetary alignment calculations. This suggests the structure had some connection to astronomical observation or celestial navigation. Park, who had been quietly examining the photograph's technical aspects, made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the team. It completed a comprehensive analysis of the photographic techniques used to create this image. The camera positioning, lens selection, and exposure settings were specifically chosen to minimize the visibility of the mysterious structure while maintaining clear detail of the Hollywood sign itself. The implications were staggering. Someone in 1993 had deliberately photographed the Hollywood sign in a way that would hide the secret structure, but advanced digital enhancement techniques had now revealed what they had tried to conceal. Professor Martinez made a decision that would change the course of their investigation. We need to examine the actual site. If this structure existed in 1993, there might still be physical evidence on Mount Lee. Foundation remnants, buried artifacts, or other traces that could provide answers. Dr. Kim looked concerned about the practical challenges. The area around the Hollywood sign is heavily protected by the Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks. We need special permits, and even then, the chances of finding anything after 100 years of weathering and development. We have to try, Professor Martinez insisted. This discovery is too important to pursue only through digital analysis. Sarah, can you create a precise location map showing exactly where the structure should be based on the photographic evidence? Sarah nodded enthusiastically, already pulling up topographical mapping software. I can triangulate the position using the sand letters as reference points and accounting for changes in terrain over the past century. Give me a few hours to create a detailed site map. As the team prepared for the raid expedition, Dr. Park made another disturbing discovery. Even monitoring online chatter about our research, and there are already rumors circulating on social media and conspiracy theory websites. Someone has been leaking information about our discovery. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their century-old mystery was attracting contemporary attention, and not all of it appeared to be academic in nature. Maria Santos, who had been conducting background research on Thomas Holloway, looked up from her computer with a troubled expression. I found something else that's concerning. Thomas Holloway wasn't just a random contractor. He was a brilliant inventor and engineer who held multiple patents for optical communication devices and precision instruments. But in 1924, just 1 year after the Hollywood sign was completed, he completely disappeared. His patents were bought by a private corporation that immediately classified them as proprietary technology. Dr. Whitfield studied the architectural drawings he had created. If Holloway was involved in building this structure, and if he specialized in optical communication, then we might be looking at some kind of early telecommunications facility. But that would be decades ahead of anything in the historical record. Professor Martinez felt a chill as she realized they might have stumbled upon something far more significant than a simple historical curiosity. The mysterious structure behind the Hollywood sign could represent a lost chapter in the history of human communication. hidden for nearly a century by forces that were still operating today. As they prepared to leave the laboratory for their site investigation, none of them noticed the figure watching them through binoculars from a distant building, or the encrypted radio transmission that reported their every move to an unknown recipient. The secret that Thomas Holloway and his associates had tried so desperately to protect was finally being uncovered, and there were those who would do anything to keep it buried. The pre-dawn darkness enveloped the Hollywood Hills as Professor Martinez's expanded research team made their final preparations for what could be the most significant archaeological expedition in Los Angeles history. They had obtained the necessary permits through a combination of academic credentials, university connections, and a carefully worded research proposal that emphasized the historical importance of their discovery without revealing its full implications. The team now included Michael Torres, a geophysicist with expertise in ground-penetrating radar, and Dr. Amanda Foster, an archaeologist specializing in early 20th century industrial sites. They carried state-of-the-art equipment, ground-penetrating radar units, metal detectors, soil analysis kits, precision GPS devices, and high-resolution cameras capable of documenting every aspect of their investigation. Sarah had worked through the night to create a detailed topographical map that precisely located the mysterious structure's position relative to the current Hollywood sign. Her calculations accounted for nearly a century of erosion, maintenance work, and landscape changes, but the basic geological features of Mount Lee remained consistent enough to provide reliable reference points. According to my analysis, the structure should have been located approximately 60 meters behind and slightly uphill from the current position of the letter O, Sarah explained, consulting her tablet as they climbed the winding trail toward the sign. The terrain is changed due to erosion and park maintenance, but the underlying rock formations should be identical. The Hollywood sign loomed above them in the early morning light, its white letters stark against the brown hillside. The original land portion had been removed in 1949, but the remaining 9 letters had become perhaps the most photographed landmark in the world. Few of the millions of visitors who had gazed upon the sign over the decades realized they were looking at a structure that had witnessed one of the most intriguing technological mysteries in American history. Torres activated his ground-penetrating radar equipment as they reached the calculated location. The device sent electromagnetic pulses deep into the earth, creating a three-dimensional subsurface map that could reveal buried structures, foundation remnants, or significant changes in soil composition. "I'm getting some very interesting readings," announced. After 30 minutes of systematic scanning, "there's definitely something substantial down there. The soil composition changes dramatically about 4 feet below the surface, and there are geometric patterns that are absolutely consistent with human construction rather than natural geological formation." Foster joined him with a high-precision metal detector, which immediately began emitting a steady series of electronic signals. "Significant metallic deposits," she confirmed, studying the device's digital display. "The pattern suggests structural elements like rebar, electrical conduits, or machinery components. This is definitely not natural." Professor Martinez felt her heart racing as the evidence mounted. After 3 decades of academic research, she was on the verge of a discovery that could revolutionize their understanding of early 20th century technology and communication. The permits authorized limited excavation for historical research purposes. Kim confirmed, reviewing their documentation. "We need to be extremely careful not to damage any artifacts or disturb the surrounding protected parkland." They began a methodical excavation using archaeological techniques, carefully removing layers of soil and debris while documenting every step with photographs and precise measurements. Within 2 hours, Sarah's trowel struck something solid and unmistakably artificial. "I found concordite," she announced, her voice barely containing her excitement. Working together with brushes and small tools, they gradually exposed what was clearly a concrete foundation. exactly where the identity is. Photograph had indicated the mysterious structure should be located. The foundation was rectangular, approximately 30 feet by 20 feet, matching Dr. Whitfield's architectural analysis perfectly. But the most extraordinary discovery came. Foster's metal detector led them to a corner of the foundation where something substantial had been deliberately buried. Carefully excavating the location, they uncovered a large metal container, approximately the size of a steamer trunk, wrapped in what appeared to be waterproof oilcloth that had somehow survived nearly a century underground. This was definitely placed here intentionally, Foster observes. Examining the container's position and protective wrapping, someone wanted to preserve whatever's inside for future discovery. The container itself was a masterpiece of early 20th century engineering. Made of a copper-bronze alloy that had resisted corrosion, it featured an intricate locking mechanism and was engraved with the same astronomical symbols they had identified in the original photograph. As they documented and photographed the foundation, Dr. Kim made another significant discovery. Carved into one of the concrete blocks were symbols that matched the astronomical markings. But there was also something else, a date carved in precise numbers, 12-21-1923, along with what appeared to be coordinates and a cryptic message in multiple languages. December 20, Whitfield said, studying the carved inscription, the winter solstice, in many ancient cultures, that date has special astronomical and spiritual significance. Dr. Torres continued his subsurface scanning and made an announcement that sent excitement through the entire team. The foundation extends much deeper than we initially thought. There appear to be underground chambers, or tunnels connected to the main structure. This wasn't just a building. It was a complex facility. The team exchanged amazed glances, each understanding that their discovery was becoming more extraordinary and mysterious with each passing hour. An undocumented building was remarkable enough, but an underground complex with astronomical symbols and a buried treasure chest suggested they had stumbled upon something that challenged conventional historical understanding. As they carefully extracted the metal container and prepared to transport it back to the laboratory for detailed analysis, Dr. Park noticed something that made her blood run cold. "We're being watched," she whispered, pointing to a distant ridge where sunlight had reflected off what appeared to be binoculars or a camera lens. Professor Martinez followed her gaze and spotted the figure observing them from approximately half a mile away. Whoever it was had professional-grade surveillance equipment and had positioned themselves to monitor the excavation site without being easily detected. "Pack everything up immediately," Professor Martinez ordered, her academic excitement now tempered by growing concern for their safety. "We need to get this container to a secure location for analysis." As they descended Mount Lee with their extraordinary discovery, none of them realized that their every move was being reported to an organization that had been waiting nearly a century for someone to uncover what Thomas Holloway and his associates had buried behind the Hollywood sign. The secret was finally emerging from its century-long hiding place, and there were forces at work that would stop at nothing to control what they had found. And look, the most striking part is still to come. But if this has made sense to you so far, like the video and send it to someone who needs to hear this. The UCLA Digital Archives Laboratory had been converted into a high-security facility overnight. University administrators, recognizing the potential global significance of the discovery, had authorized round-the-clock security and restricted access to only essential personnel. The mysterious metal container sat on a sterile examination table, surrounded by cameras, measurement devices, and some of the most advanced analytical equipment available to modern science. Professor Martinez had assembled an even larger team of experts for this crucial phase of their investigation. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a specialist in historical metallurgy, examined the container's construction and locking mechanism. Marcus Webb, a linguist with expertise in early 20th century codings and ciphers, studied the inscribed symbols. Dr. Jennifer Liu, A conservation specialist ensured that whatever was inside would be properly preserved for future study. The container itself was a marvel of engineering that defied conventional understanding of Mintis technology. The copper-bronze alloy showed sophisticated knowledge of metallurgy, while the locking mechanism incorporated precision components that wouldn't become common until decades later. The craftsmanship is absolutely extraordinary, Dr. Chen observed as she carefully examined the intricate lock. This wasn't mass-produced or created using standard industrial techniques. Someone commissioned this specifically for long-term preservation, and they spared no expense in its construction. Dr. Webb had been studying the astronomical symbols and the multilingual inscriptions carved into the container's surface. The symbols represent a complex astronomical system that incorporates elements from multiple cultures: Egyptian, Mayan, Chinese, and European. The text appears to be written in English, German, French, and what looks like a Achite cipher. Using specialized tools and techniques developed for handling priceless historical artifacts, Dr. Lu gradually worked to open the container's locking mechanism. The process was painstakingly slow, but after 3 hours of careful manipulation, they heard the satisfying click of tumblers falling into place. The lid opened with a soft hiss, revealing contents that left the entire team speechless. Inside, wrapped in silk that had somehow remained intact despite nearly a century underground, were several items that challenged everything they thought they knew about 1923 technology and scientific knowledge. The first item was a leather-bound journal filled with handwritten notes in multiple languages and detailed technical diagrams. The second was a collection of photographs showing the mysterious building during various stages of construction and operation. The third was a series of blueprints and technical specifications for what appeared to be highly advanced optical and electronic equipment. But the most shocking discovery was a formal letter written on letterhead that read in the other head that read Proyecto Constellation Los Angeles Installation. Professor Martinez carefully lifted the letter with gloved hands and began to read aloud to the assembled team. To the future researchers who discover this record, my name is Thomas Holloway, and I am writing this on the winter solstice, knowing that what we have accomplished here must remain hidden until humanity is ready to understand and responsibly use its significance. The team exchanged amazed glances. Thomas Holloway, the mysterious name from the construction invoices, was finally speaking to them across a century of silence. The letter continued. The structure you have discovered was not merely a building, but rather an advanced communication and observation facility designed for purposes that extend far beyond conventional understanding. Working with a carefully selected team of scientists, engineers, and visionaries from around the world, we have created what we believe to be humanity's first successful attempt at long-distance optical communication using focused starlight and advanced electromagnetic principles. Tim nearly dropped his camera. Optical communication in 1923, that's literally decades ahead of anything in the historical record. The first practical optical communication systems weren't developed until Professor Martinez continued reading. Our experiments have exceeded our most optimistic projections. We have established regular communication with similar installations in New York, London, Cairo, Tokyo, and Sydney, using a sophisticated network of precisely positioned mirrors, lenses, and electromagnetic amplifiers that focus and redirect celestial energy. The Hollywood sign serves not only as a landmark, but as a crucial component in our optical communication array. Sarah was frantically taking notes, her mind racing with the implications. This would explain the astronomical symbols, the winter solstice date, and the complex foundation structure. They were using stellar alignments and electromagnetic principles for their communication system. The letter went on to describe a secret internal organization of scientists and inventors who had been developing revolutionary communication and energy technologies years before they would become publicly known. The Hollywood installation had been their most ambitious and successful project, using the newly constructed sign as both camouflage and an integral component of their advanced technology. We have documented our methods, discoveries, and theoretical frameworks in the accompanying materials, the letter stated. However, we have become aware that our work has attracted dangerous attention from government intelligence agencies, military organizations, and private interests who would use our technology for purposes that contradict our fundamental principles of free communication and peaceful scientific advancement. Dr. Whitfield was examining the technical blueprints with growing amazement. These schematics show an understanding of optics, electromagnetic theory, and precision engineering that shouldn't have been possible for another 30 or 40 years. Look at this mirror array design. It's remarkably similar to systems used in modern laser communication and satellite technology. Maria Santos had been studying the photographs of the building during its operational period. Those images show equipment that looks far more advanced than anything that should have existed in mine. There are electronic components, precision instruments, and what appears to be some kind of early computer or automated calculation system. The journal proved to be equally fascinating, containing detailed records of experiments, communication logs with installations around the world, theoretical discussions about the future of human communication, and philosophical reflections on the responsibility that comes with advanced technology. Therefore, the letter concluded, we are dismantling our installation and hiding this complete record of our work, hoping that future generations will be wiser and more ethical in their application of these discoveries. The technology exists. The principles are sound. The choice of how to use them belongs to those who come after us. Professor Martinez found herself holding what might be one of the most significant historical and scientific discoveries of the day. This changes everything we know about the development of modern communication technology, international scientific cooperation, and the hidden history of technological advancement. But as exciting as the discovery was, it also raised troubling questions. If this technology had existed in 1973, why had it been hidden? Who were the government agencies and private interests that had threatened the project? And most importantly, were there people today who knew about the secret and had reasons to keep it buried? As if in answer to her unspoken concerns, Dr. Park looked up from her computer with a worried expression. Professor, we have a serious problem. I've been monitoring online activity related to our discovery, and there are already detailed discussions about our excavation on several encrypted forums. Someone has been tracking our every move and reporting to unknown parties. The implications were clear and disturbing. Their century-old discovery was attracting very contemporary attention from people who seemed to know far more about Project Constellation than any historical record should have revealed. The secret that Thomas Holloway had tried so desperately to protect was about to become the center of a conflict that spanned nearly 100 years. The story exploded across global media on a Wednesday morning when investigative journalist Rebecca Stone published a comprehensive article titled The Hollywood Sign Conspiracy: Secret Technology Hidden for 10 Years in the Washington Herald. Within hours, the story had been picked up by major news networks, social media platforms, documentary filmmakers, and conspiracy theorists around the world. Professor Martinez arrived at the laboratory to find out. Hundreds of reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers had gathered outside the building. News vans lined the street, helicopters circled overhead, and campus security was struggling to maintain orders as the crowd grew larger by the hour. This is a complete disaster, Kim muttered as they watched the media frenzy from a secure conference room. We haven't even finished analyzing half the materials, and already the entire world wants to know what we found. The situation became significantly more complicated when Sarah discovered that someone had attempted a sophisticated cyber attack on the laboratory's computer systems during the night. The intrusion had been professional-grade, specifically targeting files related to their Hollywood sign discovery and Project Constellation research. They didn't succeed in stealing anything, Sarah reported, but whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for and had advanced knowledge of our security protocols. This wasn't a random hacking attempt. Professor Martinez was fielding calls from university administrators, government agencies, private collectors, technology corporations, and individuals who claimed to have legitimate interests in the discovery. The most disturbing communication came from a man who identified himself only as Harrison and claimed to represent custodial interests that had been monitoring the situation for decades. Professor Martinez, the voice on the phone was smooth, professional, and somehow threatening. I believe you've uncovered materials that belong to my organization. We've been the designated custodians of Thomas Holloway's legacy for nearly a century, and we need to arrange an immediate meeting to discuss the proper handling of these sensitive materials. I'm sorry, but these materials are part of an ongoing academic research project, Professor Martinez replied firmly. They'll be properly studied, documented, and eventually displayed in an appropriate museum setting for public education. There was a long pause before Mr. Harrison responded, and when he spoke again, his tone had changed subtly. Professor, I don't think you fully understand the sensitivity and potential danger of what you've discovered. Some secrets are kept hidden for very good reasons that extend far beyond academic curiosity. We'll be in touch very soon. The line went dead, leaving Professor Martinez with a profound sense of unease about the forces their discovery had awakened. Meanwhile, Dr. Whitfield had been conducting practical experiments based on Holloway's technical specifications. Using modern materials and precision manufacturing techniques, he had built a small-scale model of the optical communication system described in the buried documents. It actually works perfectly, he announced to the amazed team. The mirror array can focus and redirect light with incredible precision across vast distances. With proper positioning, clear atmospheric conditions, and the right equipment, you could definitely establish reliable communication between cities or even continents. Maria Santos had been researching the other locations mentioned in Holloway's journal and had made disturbing discoveries. I found evidence of similar mysterious construction projects in New York, London, Cairo, Tokyo, and Sydney during the same time period. In each case, there are unexplained building permits, unusual material purchases, and structures that were built and then mysteriously demolished or abandoned within a few years. Kim had been investigating Thomas Holloway's background and had uncovered information that painted a picture of a brilliant but secretive inventor. Holloway was a genius who worked for several major corporations and government agencies. He held numerous patents for optical instruments, precision machinery, and electromagnetic devices. But in 1924, he suddenly disappeared completely. His patents were immediately bought by a private corporation that classified them as proprietary technology and removed them from public access. The pieces of the puzzle were forming a picture of a secret international network of advanced scientists who had developed revolutionary technology decades before the rest of the world was ready for it. But their discovery had also attracted the attention of contemporary forces that seemed determined to control or suppress what they had found. The situation escalated dramatically when campus security reported that several individuals had been attempting to gain unauthorized access to the laboratory building. Surveillance cameras had captured images of people conducting professional surveillance of the research team, and there were reports of suspicious vehicles following team members to and from the university. Dr. Park made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the team. "We've discovered something that changes everything. While researching online discussions about our discovery, I found a private forum where people are posting detailed corrections and additions to Holloway's technical specifications. Someone out there has access to information that wasn't included in the buried materials," Professor Martinez studied the forum posts that Dr. Park had discovered. The technical knowledge displayed was extraordinary, showing intimate familiarity with Project Constellation's methods and goals. But most disturbing was a recent post that read, "The Hollywood discovery is just the beginning." Project Constellation never truly ended. It evolved, adapted, and continued in secret. The network they found was the foundation for communication systems that still operate today, hidden within the infrastructure of modern technology. Sarah had been monitoring global internet traffic related to their discovery and had noticed unusual patterns. There are coordinated information campaigns happening on multiple continents. Someone is actively managing how this story spreads and what information becomes public. The mystery deepened when Liu received an anonymous package containing additional photographs, documents, and technical specifications related to Project Constellation. The materials showed that the network had been far more extensive than Holloway's journal had indicated, with installations on every continent and sophisticated systems for coordinating global communications and scientific research. But the most shocking revelation came in a letter included with the anonymous materials to the UCLA research team. "You have uncovered the first layer of something much larger and more significant than you realize." Project Constellation was not just a communication network. It was the foundation for a secret scientific society that has continued to operate and evolve for nearly a century. The technology that Holloway and his colleagues developed became the basis for advances in communication, computing, and energy that are still classified today. The letter was signed the Constellation Society and included a detailed invitation for Professor Martinez and her team to attend a meeting where they would learn the complete truth about Holloway's legacy and its modern implications. Professor Martinez stared at the invitation, realizing that their discovery of a century-old secret had led them into the middle of something that was very much alive and active in the present day. The Hollywood sign, which had started as a simple real estate advertisement, had become the guardian of one of the most significant technological and scientific secrets in human history. As evening approached, and the media circus outside continued to grow, Professor Martinez made a decision that would determine not only the fate of their discovery, but possibly the future of global communication, scientific research, and technological development. The invitation specified a meeting location that was both symbolic and appropriate: the Griffith Observatory, with its clear view of the Hollywood sign that had started their incredible journey. Tomorrow night, under the same stars that had guided Holloway's optical communications a century ago, they would finally learn the complete truth about the secret that had been hidden behind the world's most famous landmark. The Griffith Observatory stood majestically against the star-filled Los Angeles sky, as Professor Martinez and her team arrived for what would prove to be the most extraordinary meeting of their academic career. The iconic Art Deco building, with its copper dome and classical architecture, provided a fitting backdrop for revelations that would bridge nearly a century of hidden scientific achievement. They had taken extensive security precautions, informing university administrators and law enforcement of their plans, while carrying encrypted communication devices and GPS tracking equipment. The anonymous invitation had specified the observatory's main terrace at precisely 9:47 p.m., a time that they would later learn corresponded to a specific stellar alignment that had been significant to Project Constellation. As they approached the designated meeting location, they were surprised to find not a shadowy figure or mysterious contact, but rather a distinguished elderly woman, accompanied by a small group of individuals who appeared to be scientists, engineers, and academics from various fields. "Professor Martinez," the woman said, extending her hand in greeting, "I am Dr. Catherine Holloway Chen, and I am Thomas Holloway's great-granddaughter. Thank you for accepting our invitation." The team exchanged amazed glances. Holloway Chen appeared to be in her 70s, with silver hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to reflect decades of carefully guarded knowledge. She was accompanied by 5 other individuals who introduced themselves as Dr. James Morrison from MIT, Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Tokyo University, Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Max Planck Institute, Dr. Davides Kim from Cambridge, and Dr. Sara Abdullah from Cairo University. We represent the modern continuation of what your research has uncovered. Holowai Chen explained as they gathered around the table that had been set up on the observatory's terrace. The Constellation Society has existed in various forms since 1923, preserving and advancing the work that my great-grandfather and his colleagues began behind the Hollywood sign. Professor Martinez found her voice, despite her amazement. You mean Project Constellation never actually ended? Dr. Morrison, a physicist specializing in quantum communication, answered her question. It evolved when government pressure forced the original installations to shut down in 1924. The core group of scientists realized they needed to work more carefully and secretly. They established what became the Constellation Society, a hidden network of researchers dedicated to advancing human communication and scientific knowledge without interference from political or commercial interests. Tanaka opened a tablet and showed them images that made their recent discovery seem like just the beginning of a much larger story. The optical communication principles that your great-grandfather developed became the foundation for technologies that most people believe were invented decades later. Fiber optic communication, satellite networks, quantum entanglement communications, all of these had their origins in Project Constellation research. Vasquez added, we've been operating research facilities around the world for nearly a century, always hidden within legitimate academic institutions or disguised as other projects. The Hollywood installation was just one node in a network that now spans 6 continents. Professor Martinez struggled to process the implications. But why the secrecy? Why not share these advances with the world? Dr. Holowai Chen's expression became serious. Because we learned from history, every major technological advancement has been weaponized, commercialized, or used to increase inequality and control. The Internet, which was partially based on our early networking research, has become a tool for surveillance and manipulation. We've seen what happens when powerful technology falls into the wrong hands. Dr. Kim from Cambridge pulled out a folder containing documents that looked remarkably similar to what they had found in the buried container. The Constellation Society has been working for decades to ensure that advanced communication technology serves humanity rather than controlling it. We've been responsible for numerous anonymous technological breakthroughs that have been released to the public when the time was right. Sarah, who had been listening intently, asked the question that was on everyone's mind. What do you want from us? Why reveal yourselves now? Dr. Abdullah smiled. Because you've done something remarkable. Your discovery and the way you've handled it has shown us that there are still academic researchers who prioritize knowledge and truth over personal gain or institutional pressure. We'd like to invite you to join us. Morrison activated a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional map of the world with glowing points of light scattered across every continent. These represent our current active research installation. We're working on communication technologies that could revolutionize human connection, quantum entanglement networks that would make distance irrelevant, consciousness interface systems that could allow direct mind-to-mind communication, and energy distribution methods that could end the scarcity forever. Professor Martinez stared at this display, realizing that everything they thought they knew about the limits of current technology was wrong. This is incredible, but why hasn't any of this become public knowledge? The Holowai Chen's expression darkened. Because we're not the only ones who know about it. The same government and corporate interests that forced Project Constellation underground in 1924 still exist today, and they're more powerful than ever. They want to control these technologies for profit and power, rather than human benefit. Dr. Vasquez pointed toward the Hollywood sign, visible in the distance. Your discovery has attracted their attention again. The people who have been watching you, the cyber attacks on your systems, the media manipulation, they're all part of an effort to either control your research or discredit entirely. Dr. Tanaka added, we've been protecting you as much as we can. But the situation is becoming dangerous. These forces have unlimited resources and no ethical constraints. The meeting continued for 3 hours as the Constellation Society members shared technologies, discoveries, and knowledge that challenged every assumption about human scientific achievement. They showed evidence of communication with installations on the International Space Station, quantum computers that operated decades before they were supposedly invented, and energy systems that could power entire cities without environmental impact. But they also shared the darker side of their story, the constant vigilance required to stay hidden, the researchers who had disappeared when they got too close to the truth, and the ongoing struggle against forces that wanted to weaponize or monopolize their discoveries. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Holloway Chen made an offer that would change their lives forever. "We're inviting you to join the Constellation Society. Your research skills, your integrity, and your commitment to knowledge make you exactly the kind of people we need. But you need to understand that accepting means leaving your current lives behind and dedicating yourselves to work that may never receive public recognition." Professor Martinez looked at her team, seeing the same mixture of excitement and apprehension in their faces that she felt herself. They had started with a simple photograph enhancement project and discovered a secret that spanned a century and promised to reshape the future of human civilization. "We need time to consider this," she said finally. Dr. Holloway Chen nodded understandingly. "Of course, but don't take too long. The forces that destroyed the original Project Constellation are mobilizing again, and this time they have resources and technology that make them far more dangerous than they were in 19. As the Constellation Society members prepared to leave, Morrison handed Professor Martinez a small device that looked like a combination of smartphone and holographic projector. "This will allow you to contact us securely when you've made your decision. But be careful. From this moment forward, you're part of a story that some very powerful people want to end." The team stood on the observatory terrace long after their mysterious contacts had disappeared into the night, staring at the Hollywood sign that had started their incredible journey. They now understood that the famous landmark was not just a symbol of entertainment and dreams, but a guardian of secrets that could change the world. The choice before them was clear but difficult: return to their normal academic lives and publish their historical discovery, or join a secret society dedicated to advancing human knowledge while staying hidden from forces that would use that knowledge for harm. As they drove back through the glittering lights of Los Angeles, each team member knew that their decision would determine not only their own futures, but possibly the future of human communication, scientific advancement, and technological freedom. The Hollywood sign had kept its secret for nearly 100 years. But now that secret was about to either transform the world or disappear forever, depending on the choice made by a small group of researchers who had stumbled upon one of the most significant discoveries in human history. The stars that had guided Thomas Holloway's optical communications in 1900 continued to shine above Los Angeles, waiting to see whether his legacy would finally emerge from the shadows or remain hidden for another century.